Among history's most chilling and complex figures, Theodore Robert Bundy, known to the world as Ted Bundy, was born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont. How did a man who once seemed charming and intelligent become one of the most infamous serial killers in American history? What dark secrets from his childhood shaped the person he would become? And how did love, lies, and loss play a role in the creation of a monster? Please watch this video until the very end, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share it with friends who follow true crime stories. Your support helps us keep telling these powerful stories. Thank you. Now, let's dive into the full story. Bundy's early life was marked by confusion and abandonment. He was raised by his maternal grandparents, Samuel and Eleanor Cowell, who pretended to be his parents. His biological mother, Eleanor Louise Cowell, was introduced to him as his older sister. This secret would haunt Bundy, especially when he uncovered the truth in 1969 that his father's identity was never confirmed. Even before his crimes, Bundy showed troubling behavior. As a child, he was known to be cruel to animals and emotionally distant. During his teenage years in Tacoma, Washington, he grew more isolated and deeply troubled. Despite excelling academically at the University of Washington, he struggled with unstable relationships, especially with his mother and stepfather. A relationship with a woman named Diane Edwards became a turning point. To Bundy, she represented an ideal love. When she broke up with him in 1968, something snapped. The heartbreak didn't just leave him sad, it pushed him down a dark path marked by violence, obsession, and a need for control. But what exactly turned Ted Bundy from a student and lover into a killer feared across the country? Ted Bundy's criminal activity began with a string of violent acts that would haunt multiple states in the United States. His first known victim was Karen Sparks, whom he attacked in the early hours of January 4, 1974. Bundy used a metal rod to bludgeon her, leaving her with severe injuries that led to permanent brain damage. But this was only the beginning of his horrific crimes. Throughout 1974, several young women, all of whom were college students, disappeared without a trace in the Pacific Northwest. Bundy's modus operandi was chillingly consistent. He would often approach his victims under the guise of needing help or pretending to be an authority figure. Once he gained their trust, he would overpower them, abduct them, and take them to secluded locations where he would assault and kill them. His victims were often found in remote areas, and Bundy's crimes spread across Washington, Oregon, and Utah, with the number of missing women growing steadily. Bundy's escalating violence didn't stop with kidnappings and murders. He became infamous for revisiting his victims' bodies after their deaths. His actions became more brazen, and his behavior revealed a deep, sadistic pleasure in exercising control over his victims, even after their deaths. These activities were carried out with a level of premeditation and planning that left little to chance. Bundy's methods evolved over time, and by 1975, he was already a prime suspect in several unsolved murders. But what drove Bundy to commit these heinous acts? Was it simply the need for power and control, or were deeper psychological forces at play? His calculated approach to murder and his ability to hide in plain sight would make him one of the most notorious criminals in history. Ted Bundy's reign of terror came to an end on January 24, 1989, when he was executed by electrocution at Florida State Prison. This marked the final chapter in the life of one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. Bundy's execution came after years of legal battles, multiple trials, and his confession to the murders of over 30 women across several states. His crimes had caused widespread fear and panic, and his capture was a long-awaited moment for the families of the victims and the communities affected by his brutality. In the years leading up to his execution, Bundy was incarcerated in several prisons, including a brief stint in Utah and later in Florida. While in prison, he maintained his innocence for a time, but eventually confessed to the murders in a final attempt to help investigators locate the remains of some victims. His confessions came just months before his execution, offering closure to many families who had long been searching for answers. Bundy's death ended his life of violence, but the legacy of his crimes left a lasting impact on those who were involved in the case. From law enforcement to the families of his victims, Bundy's execution was a grim reminder of the severity of his actions, but it also symbolized a sense of justice for those who had suffered at his hands. His death, while bringing closure to many, also raised questions about the nature of punishment and the morality of the death penalty. Bundy's final moments were filled with contradiction, as he expressed remorse for his actions, while simultaneously continuing to deny his responsibility in some cases. Ted Bundy's execution sparked a variety of reactions, from relief to shock, across the United States and internationally. Many viewed his death as a necessary end to the reign of terror he had inflicted over several years. For the victims' families, his execution represented a sense of justice, as they had endured years of grief and uncertainty. It provided a sense of finality, knowing that the man responsible for the abductions, assaults, and murders of their loved ones was no longer alive to harm anyone else. However, Bundy's execution also prompted debate, particularly about the ethics of capital punishment. Some felt that his death was too quick an end for a man who had caused so much pain and suffering. Others believed that the death penalty was a just punishment for the horrors he had inflicted on countless victims. His execution brought attention to the broader issue of the death penalty in the United States, a debate that continues to this day. Bundy's crimes also had a lasting impact on law enforcement practices. His case led to important developments in forensic investigations, especially in terms of criminal profiling and the use of DNA evidence. The fear his crimes generated pushed authorities to improve communication between different states and agencies, making it easier to track and apprehend serial offenders. Bundy's legacy, though marked by his horrific actions, also played a role in shaping the future of criminal justice in America. Ted Bundy's trial was one of the most publicized criminal cases in American history. His first major trial began in 1979, where he faced charges related to the brutal murders at Florida's Chi Omega sorority house. The trial was a media sensation, with Bundy acting as his own attorney for much of the proceedings. His charisma and confidence during the trial, combined with his disturbing ability to maintain a calm demeanor despite the charges, captured the attention of both the public and the media. This added to the sense of intrigue surrounding his case, making it even more sensational. Despite Bundy's attempts to represent himself, the trial was ultimately a decisive moment in his conviction. The evidence presented was overwhelming, with eyewitness testimony, physical evidence, and Bundy's own confessions leading to his conviction for multiple murders. The prosecution's case was built on strong circumstantial evidence, including hair samples found in Bundy's car that matched victims and the consistent witness descriptions of a man fitting Bundy's profile. After a grueling trial, Bundy was found guilty of the Chi Omega murders and was sentenced to death. His conviction and subsequent sentencing were the culmination of years of investigation and a long public battle. Bundy's trial, which was followed by millions across the world, became a symbol of the growing public fascination with serial killers and their ability to evade justice for so long. It was a sobering reminder of the need for stronger law enforcement practices and more thorough investigations to prevent such tragedies from happening again. Ted Bundy's time in prison was marked by two dramatic escapes that only added to his notorious reputation. The first escape took place in June of 1977, when Bundy was being held in a Colorado jail. He was temporarily placed in a law library without handcuffs and took advantage of the opportunity by jumping from a second-story window. After injuring his ankle during the jump, he spent several days on the run, wandering the mountains around Aspen, Colorado. Bundy's ability to evade capture for those 6 days only further emphasized his cunning and resourcefulness. After his recapture, Bundy was transferred back to jail, but he was not done escaping yet. In December of 1977, he managed to break out again, this time from a different jail in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Using a hole he sawed through the ceiling of his cell, Bundy crawled through the jail's ventilation system and slipped into the chief jailer's apartment. There, he stole clothes and walked out the front door, escaping once again. This second escape led to a nationwide manhunt that saw Bundy on the run for weeks. His escape brought attention to the inadequacies in the prison system and the need for better security measures. Bundy's final escape was a pivotal moment in his criminal journey, though he had already committed multiple heinous crimes. These escapes gave him more time to commit further murders and continue to evade capture, making his eventual arrest all the more significant. Ted Bundy's final capture occurred in February of 1978, when he was arrested in Florida after a dramatic series of murders. His capture was not the result of a single mistake, but a culmination of law enforcement efforts that had finally zeroed in on him after years of investigations and multiple escapes. Bundy was eventually linked to the murders in Florida through physical evidence and witness testimonies. His capture marked the end of his ability to continue his killing spree across the United States. Bundy's time in Florida was a last chapter filled with legal battles. His trial in Florida for the Chi Omega murders was the final trial where he was found guilty of his crimes. Despite initially maintaining his innocence, Bundy later confessed to dozens of murders just before his execution, attempting to help authorities find the remains of some of his victims. On January 24, 1989, Bundy was executed by electrocution at Florida State Prison. His execution marked the end of one of the most infamous criminal careers in American history. Bundy's death was met with mixed reactions, while many felt justice had been served. Others questioned the morality of the death penalty. Nevertheless, his execution was a grim reminder of the horrors he inflicted and the lives he destroyed. Bundy's legacy, defined by his horrific crimes and eventual execution, continues to resonate in discussions about criminal justice. Ted Bundy's psychological profile has been a topic of intense scrutiny and debate among experts in criminal psychology. Bundy's behavior displayed many traits typical of a psychopath: a lack of empathy, a need for control, and a complete disregard for human life. Psychologists and criminologists have debated whether Bundy's crimes were a result of nature, nurture, or a combination of both. Some argue that his troubled childhood and complicated family dynamics played a significant role in shaping his violent tendencies, while others point to his narcissistic and manipulative personality as key factors that drove him to commit such heinous acts. Bundy's ability to blend into society and maintain relationships with those around him, often with charm and charisma, made him even more dangerous. He was able to deceive and manipulate those closest to him, which allowed him to continue his killing spree undetected for years. His confidence and ability to act as his own attorney during his trials, despite being a murderer, only further demonstrated his deep sense of superiority and control. The impact of Bundy's crimes was profound, both on the communities where his murders occurred and on the broader American society. His actions contributed to a heightened awareness of serial killers and their psychological makeup. Bundy's case led to changes in law enforcement tactics, particularly in the investigation of missing persons and the sharing of information across state lines. It also sparked a cultural fascination with serial killers, leading to an increase in media coverage and the public's interest in understanding the mind of a killer. Ted Bundy's crimes had a significant and lasting impact on the field of criminal justice. His ability to evade capture for so long, despite his increasingly violent behavior, highlighted the challenges law enforcement faced in tracking serial killers. Bundy's case led to a greater emphasis on criminal profiling and the need for specialized training for law enforcement officers in identifying patterns of serial crimes. Investigators began to understand that serial killers often display certain behavioral patterns, such as choosing similar victims, that could help law enforcement connect disparate cases. One of the most important outcomes of Bundy's influence was the establishment of better systems for cross-jurisdictional communication between police departments. Bundy's crimes spanned multiple states, and the failure of local law enforcement to share information led to missed opportunities for catching him earlier. The case made it clear that serial killings should be treated as interconnected cases, and as a result, more coordinated efforts were implemented to track and capture serial offenders. Bundy also brought attention to the use of forensic evidence in solving crimes. His eventual capture was partly due to forensic science, which was a relatively new tool at the time. The discovery of hair samples matching Bundy's victims in his car helped tie him to the murders and provided law enforcement with critical evidence. Bundy's case thus became a catalyst for the development and use of forensic evidence in modern criminal investigations. Ted Bundy's crimes were marked by the brutal killings of numerous young women across several states, making his list of victims extensive and tragic. The women he targeted were often college students, and many of them had similar characteristics. They were young, white, and had long, parted hair. Bundy's method of attack was to lure his victims with a seemingly harmless persona posing as an injured man, an authority figure, or simply someone in need of help. Once he gained their trust, he would abduct, assault, and murder them, leaving their bodies in remote locations. Among his first known victims was Karen Sparks, a student from the University of Washington, whom Bundy attacked in January of 1974. Bundy went on to murder women like Linda Ann Healy, who was abducted from her home and later found dead, and Donna Gail Manson, who vanished from her dormitory. As the killings spread across Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado, Bundy's methods remained consistent, though his violence became increasingly sadistic. Despite the horror he inflicted, Bundy's victims have not been forgotten. Many of their families sought justice, and their stories played a significant role in bringing Bundy to trial. Bundy's crimes serve as a reminder of the vulnerability of young women during a time when serial killings were not well understood, and the fear these murders instilled in communities was widespread. Bundy's victims were not just names in a case file, but real individuals with families, dreams, and futures that were cruelly taken from them. Ted Bundy's case attracted massive media attention, making him one of the most infamous serial killers in history. His good looks, charm, and intelligence led to a public fascination with his crimes, which only grew as he was featured in countless news stories, documentaries, and books. Bundy was often portrayed as a clean-cut and articulate man, a juxtaposition that made his crimes all the more shocking. The media's portrayal of Bundy, coupled with his ability to speak publicly and defend himself in court, only added to his mystique and the public's obsession with his character. As Bundy's trial played out in the media, public perception of him shifted from that of a charismatic law student to a cold-blooded killer. His appearance in court, acting as his own lawyer, gave him an air of control and manipulation, which intrigued the public. The televised nature of the trial allowed the world to witness his calculated behavior, as well as his shocking moments of self-doubt and remorse in later years. While many were fascinated by Bundy's personality and his ability to manipulate those around him, the media also played a critical role in bringing attention to the victims of his crimes. Their stories, while often overshadowed by the sensationalism surrounding Bundy, brought attention to the vulnerability of women and the dangers they faced. The media's coverage, both in print and on television, helped shape the public's understanding of Bundy's crimes and contributed to his lasting legacy in criminal history. Ted Bundy's legacy is one of horror, but also one of transformation within the criminal justice system. His brutal crimes led to significant changes in law enforcement tactics, particularly in how serial murders are investigated and how information is shared between states. The horror of Bundy's killings served as a catalyst for improvements in criminal profiling, forensic science, and the understanding of serial crime. His case marked a turning point in how law enforcement approached serial offenders, ultimately influencing investigative methods that continue to shape modern policing. Beyond law enforcement, Bundy's case left an indelible mark on the media and society. The widespread media coverage of his trials, escapes, and eventual execution captivated the public and led to a growing fascination with serial killers. This media attention has, in many ways, shaped public perceptions of crime and criminal psychology, making Bundy a central figure in discussions about the nature of evil and the human psyche. For the victims of Bundy's crimes, his legacy is one of profound loss. While Bundy's death brought an end to his reign of terror, the families of his victims continue to live with the aftermath of his actions. The young women who fell victim to Bundy are remembered, not just as victims, but as real people with hopes and dreams cut short by a ruthless killer. In the end, Bundy's legacy is a grim reminder of the darkness that can reside within the human mind and the ongoing need for vigilance and reform in the fight against crime. Thank you very much for watching.